model, we're going to plot decimals on a horizontal number line, and that means these numbers are going to be between two integers. And that's the first question we're going to ask. What two integers is it between? And I will also use the word consecutive. And that just means two back-to-back numbers. And just listen how I think through this first one with graphing 3 and 5/10. So I know that 3 and 5/10 is absolutely between 3, because it's greater than 3, is 3 and, so I already know 3. And it would be, think for a minute, would it be between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4? Common sense tells us it has to be between 3 and 4 because it's greater than 3. 3 and 4 are consecutive numbers. They're numbers that are back to back to each other, and that's what consecutive means. So this number is between, I'm going to put it in here, 3 and 5/10 would be between the integers 3 and 4. So that's the logic I'm using here to figure out how to approximate the location. It may not be exactly right, but I know it's somewhere between those two numbers. But let's try with the next one, which is -6 and 5/10. So I know the first integer is -6, but this is where it gets a little tricky. And I want us to think for a minute. Here's -6. Is our number between -6 and -7? Or -6 and -5? A lot of times kids go and say, well, it has to be greater than -6. In that case, it will put us somewhere here between -6 and -5. That doesn't make sense. I wouldn't write it that way. So I want us to just think through as you're thinking of the number. Get to that first number 6 and think 6 and 5/10. I'm moving further to the left. So this number has to be actually between -6 and -7. Okay, so that's my thinking. I go to -6. That was my first step. I went to -6. And because I went and 5/10, I had to go further to the left. That is the direction I'm going. Let's try with the next one, 8/10. And it is between two numbers also. It will be between 0. And in this case, I know it's either going to be between 0 and 1 or 0 and -1. Because it's positive, it's a little bit easier. It's going to be between 0 and +1. How do I know it wasn't 0 and -1? Think about that. How do I know that? Big hint, because it's a positive number. If it was a negative number, then I know it would be between -1 and 0. But because it's positive, I know it has to be here. And it has to be greater than 0, so I know I'm going to the right. And let's try the last one. Same thinking. -5 and 75/100ths. So again, I know -5 is one of the integers. So do your thinking, and you're going to -5 and 75/100. So I have to keep moving further to the left. So it's between -5 and -6. So I think about this more with my negative numbers. I want to be sure when I'm locating. And I cannot tell you, Math Marbles, how many times I see kids who know that they get the first integer and they just make an error on the second one because of that thinking. But language really matters. When I say something is more, remember, more is always towards the right. And that's where a lot of kids get mixed up, and they'll go, well, it's more than -5, and they put it in here. But think about it. I'll go to -5, and if I'm counting to -5, and then I have to do and another 75/100, so I have to move further to the left. So let's hit pause. Please remember these questions. What is it between what two consecutive numbers? And jot this down in your notes. And let's go to our next one. And this one is tricky. This one's worded very, very tricky. So I'm going to take my time to break this down. We want to plot the absolute value of point A. So we are not plotting A. We are not plotting -3.5. We are plotting the absolute value a negative 3.5? That is a very different question. So let's start with that. What is the absolute value of negative 3.5? So remember, when we think absolute value, you should automatically be thinking distance from 0. That's what you're thinking in your mind. So how far away is negative 3.5 from 0? It's 3.5. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to plot. We're going to plot 3.5. And we know 3.5 is between what two numbers? It's greater than 3 and less than 4. So here's 3.5. Now let's say it correctly, 3 and 5/10. I could also call this the absolute value of negative 3 and 5/10. Both the same. All right, so that's the first part. And here's the second part of our question. That part, we broke it down pretty easily. The second part is to plot its opposite. So now this is where it gets fun. If we know that point A, see how far away it is 3 and 5/10 from 0 to the right, I'm going to do the same thing to the left. I'm going to go 3 and 5/10 to the left. So same thing. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. I'm moving on the right left to help you out. And so where does that leave us? That leaves us at negative 3 and 5/10. So those are its opposites. There we go. We've not only plotted an absolute value of a point, but we've plotted its opposite. So hit pause. Let's jot this down in your notes. And as you're doing your mid-lesson and your practice, please make sure you're thinking about the language, because our words really matter when we're talking about location with numbers. And I will see you in the next lesson, Math Marbles. Take care.